And our second DigiGods podcast of 2016 is underway. I am back once again with Tim Cogshell. Thank you, Tim.
I'm so glad to be here. I'm not exactly a DigiGod. I'm more like a demigod.
You're
Digi-demigod.
Well, you're part of the Cinegods who that endlessly delayed website is still coming. So hang on, everybody. Websites always take longer than anticipated, and the holidays certainly put us off our game. Really quickly, send us your emails and your new intro suggestions, by all means, to gods@digigods.com. Send us Vox boxes if you could. And we're getting our act together for 2016. Mark will be back next week. And we had a good awards show last week.
Yes,
it was a good dinner.
Look,
it's always a good dinner.
It's LAFCA, what are you
same food every year. Mark often will feed me some strange confection that he cooks up in his cauldron. You are feeding me these really funky snacks today. This is really nice. Almond pops with blueberries.
Fantastic stuff, and I think they might even be gluten-free.
You know what? They are gluten-free, and they taste better than anything Mark has ever baked for me. There we go. I'm sure he'll listen to the show, and he's probably screaming, "What?" Several octaves higher than that right now. People have been dying. We didn't talk about this last week, but people have been dying like crazy. I mean, we lost Vilmos Zsigmond.
Oh, yes.
We lost Haskell Wexler.
Yes, two of the great
cinematographers of all time, and we've just been losing all kinds of celebrities left and right. It's just been really, I mean, I know it happens every year.
Sure, it does.
Die, but it just feels like a lot at once, doesn't it?
And they happen to be people who we have these sort of particular identifications for, because they were so pivotal in many of the films and much of the work that we've been looking at for years and years and years. These guys, these were pivotal. Haskell Wexler wasn't just a great cinematographer; he was a groundbreaking cinematographer.
Yeah,
he was one of the first guys to get that camera off the tripod.
Yeah,
put it on his shoulder. And go with it, Fat City.
And a filmmaker as well.
Yeah, a filmmaker. Yeah.
So. Very pivotal figure, and Vilmos Zsigmond. Apart from Close Encounters, his life was amazing. I mean, he left, when the Prague Spring happened. I mean, he was, he fled communism and kind of came here along with Laszlo Kovacs, and they worked on Nudie Cuties and Doris Wishman movies, and all these little exploitation films from the 60s. And it's funny, you watch some of those movies, and when we made Schlock, you remember this, we watched some of those clips of, like, it was something that Herschel Gordon Lewis and David Friedman had done. It was like a girl with no pants on a swing, swinging into the camera, swinging into the lens, and I remember we were thinking, okay, whoever's pulling focus on her butt cheeks as they come into the lens is doing a brilliant job, and we know it's either Laszlo Kovacs or Vilmos Zsigmond.
Yeah,
that's how they started.
And they were that good. They were good no matter what they were doing. Yeah. Lost a few.
It's good stuff.
So I don't know. What are we going to do here?
Let's jump into. We have a few newer movies that we didn't get to last week, and we after that we got a lot of music and classic movies. We got library and catalog stuff and documentaries to get to, and we got some good stuff, and we should kind of get ourselves back up and running this week. So that is an interesting film.
Yeah, the M. Night here. Yeah.
Let's talk about it, because
bit of a comeback for him in a certain sort of way.
Yeah.
We're talking about The Visit here. I'm holding the Blu-ray in my hand. All right, so M. Night, The Sixth Sense. Actually, I'm an Unbreakable guy too. A lot of people are not.
You and I both. Yeah. I thought Unbreakable was his other really good film, and everything since then has been kind of.
I'm kind of done.
Yeah,
I'm kind of done, and that's like 20 years on, But then he does this little thing. Now, this is a low-budget movie.
Well, he's gone in with the Blumhouse guys, Jason Blum.
Paranormal activities and all these sort of little things.
So it's almost like he's, which is weird. This is kind of like as if the guy who did The Sixth Sense has resigned himself to the fact that he now needs to go to. Toby Hooper to resurrect his career. It's a
Roger
weird,
Corman, trying to get a gig from Roger Corman.
It's a weird reversal of fortune.
Particularly when he's doing what they do as opposed to bringing what he does to them. Nevertheless, this movie works in a certain sort of way. It's a small movie. It has a little twist at the end. Yeah, I think it gives it up fairly early on in the movie. I kind of figured out what's going on.
It's very obvious. It's very obvious.
30, 35 minutes into the movie. It knocks us. Good performances. I will give it that the visit. On the Blu-ray here, what do you got? Alternate ending, which strikes me as interesting because this film sort of depends on the ending. All M. Night movies depend on the ending.
We should point out as well. This is basically a kind of a found footage movie. It's about a couple of kids who go to spend some time with the grandparents that they've never met. Okay. If you're a moron, then stop right now and you'll avoid the spoilers because emphasis on the grandparents they've never met. Yeah. That's the if that isn't a giveaway, then I'm sorry, you just lost your human race card.
Who happen to live far out on a farm where there's no internet service and no phone service.
Their mom left home when she was young and pregnant and barefoot and for whatever reason anyway. So they've never met their grandparents, and apparently they've never even seen a picture of their grandparents. And apparently there's no, I mean, it's like the plot holes in this thing are just relentlessly ridiculous. But and the girl is like, she's shooting this as and putting the camera in ridiculous places to make a video essay of their visit with their grandparents. Yeah, whatever. There's one moment in this that I think is genuinely creepy, funny, scary. Is
that thing under the porch?
It's when that's not bad. That's not bad. It's all involving grandma.
Oh yeah,
but
yeah. I know.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. It's the mantle moment.
Yeah.
But it has a few fun moments, but it's really not. It's nothing.
Good performance is not in service of much. The Blu-ray, DVD, digital HD, alternate ending, deleted scenes, the making of, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's fine. All right, got a funky movie here called Hell and Back, and these are I really like these almond puffs. I really do. Whole grain brown rice, gluten free. That has no business tasting even like food.
Yeah, it doesn't taste bad.
180snacks.com. I'm going to see if they want to sponsor the podcast. We'll get a bunch of free ones. Anyway, no, Hell and Back is an R-rated stop motion animated movie that is a bit of a trip. I don't want to say that it's like Team America isn't right. Team America is marionettes. It's not stop motion, but it has a certain South Parky quality to it, which reminded me a little bit of that.
Is that the thing with Mila Kunis and everybody? Doing the voices in Hell and Back.
Did Mila Kunis do a voice in this? She did. Yes, she did. You're right. Well, Bob Odenkirk is the obvious one. Mila Kunis, I wouldn't know her voice. But Nick Swardson, I recognize. Bob Odenkirk. Danny McBride does a voice in this. And Susan Sarandon. Those are the ones that I recognize. Yeah, Mila Kunis for sure. No, it's essentially about a couple of guys who break their blood oath. And they wind up having to fight demons in hell. It is a pretty wild and trippy movie. Not as funny as it should be, but I gotta say, when you get this wild and crazy and raunchy, and the devil clearly is borrowed kind of half from the South Park movie and kind of half from the demon in Ridley Scott's Legend.
Oh yeah. That guy.
It's enjoyable in a certain way. It pushes a lot of buttons, but it doesn't really go overboard. So I think this is kind of a fun movie. Definitely worth checking out.
Well, the devil is in that movie. This one's called The Green Inferno, Eli Roth film.
Oh dear.
Director's cut.
This is the cannibal thing.
This is the cannibal film. Yeah, these people, they go off to South America, Central, wherever they go there, and their intention is to document this lost tribe and try to see if they can do something to save this tribe. They end up becoming mostly food for this tribe, and it's one of these horrifying things that Eli Roth likes to do. It's a bit of a throwback to those sort of middle 70s sort of films from that era that were kind of creepy and interesting. Look, the whole hostile, Eli Roth sort of thing, that's a particular thing, and I know folks like it.
Yeah.
I know that there's an audience for this stuff. It wears insanely thin on me.
Yeah.
You can only cover bologna in so much ketchup and make it look like entrails, and and it have people. Anyway, this has does have a commentary track on it from a writer-director. And what's odd to me is that, for an Eli Roth film, Eli's, he's been around for a while now. Didn't get that much of a release, this movie.
No, not really. It was very limited. Very limited. And probably smart, too, because DVD and Blu-ray is where these movies really do their business.
Exactly, with the fans. So there it is.
Interesting little movie. It's not really a faith-based film. These things are coming out fast and furious all the time now. This is called Valley Inn. It has kind of a faithy quality to it, but you know what? Good cast, including David Lansbury, Natalie Cannerday, and most importantly, Joey Lauren Adams, who has not been this really wonderful or endearing since Chasing Amy. I gotta say,
I just haven't seen Joey Lauren in so long.
She just kind of went away. She showed up in a couple of movies since then, but she's wonderful here. She's aged really well. She's a better actress than ever, and I thought she was terrific. I thought she was really, really terrific in this.
Joey Lauren, of course, of many Kevin Smith films, Chasing Amy
and others. Basically, a story of a young woman who. It takes place in Arkansas. It's kind of a fish out of water thing. She's getting a summer job to sell Christian books, but there's this Ozark rodeo event and some interesting. Let's just say some good character stuff that transpires as her life changes through this particular this one summer. It's always a summer. It's never a spring. It's always something happened one summer. You ever notice that? Anyway,
crazy things happen.
Nicely photographed, really well directed by a couple, Kim Swink and Chris Spencer, and I think it'll probably do pretty well on DVD. This is from Monarch and features a song that was written and performed, believe it or not, by co-performed by Mary and co-written by Mary Steenburgen.
Ah.
So that's a nice little movie called Valley Inn. Nice little kind of Arkansas rural. And you know what? I appreciated the fact that it makes Arkansas look appealing, because Arkansas has been the butt of so many jokes for so many years.
I was stationed in Arkansas. I was in the Air Force.
It's a pretty state.
I was stationed in the Air Force in the Air Force in Arkansas during the period when Bill Clinton was the governor.
Really?
Of Arkansas. He was the governor. As a matter of fact, when I was stationed in Arkansas, at the very first time, Bill Clinton was the 26-year-old Attorney General.
Oh, my goodness.
26 years old. He was the Attorney General of Arkansas.
Holy cow.
And then he got elected governor when he was like 30, 31, 32 or something like that. And I just happened to be there. It was the weirdest thing in the world. So when he ran for president many years later, a decade later, I was like, "Oh, Bubba, that's Bubba."
So he was Bubba already back then.
Oh, we called him Bubba. I just meet him I see him all the time. Of course, he was 30 years old.
Yeah.
I was just like, Bubba. That's Bubba. I have in my hands here a Blu-ray. Luke Goss, Dolph Lundgren, Chuck Liddell, and Mickey Rourke. That's a hell of a manly cast.
That's
right
a
there.
That's a lot of sweat.
Now this is called War Pigs. It's a World War II drama, action movie. Which is an interesting thing. You don't see many of those World War II movies.
The Dirty Dozen thing.
The Dirty Dozen kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's what these guys are doing in this movie. They're the group of misfits, disgraced guys who did something wrong, and now they have an opportunity to redeem themselves and go on a mission that they're probably not going to make it back from.
Yeah.
And it's one of those, hey, look, these guys all look great with 5 o'clock shadow. They always look great with those bowl helmets, that Patton used to wear, and they can hold that cigar hanging out of one corner of their mouth while still smoking it and firing a machine gun from the hip. So it's like one of those Tim Thomerson movies from back in the 90s. War Pigs looks pretty good. Not much on this thing, but like I said, Luke Goss, Dolph Lundgren, and Mickey Rourke. These guys are worth a fortune.
They make
in terms of reselling movies in the foreign market. That's the reason why they keep making movies.
And Dolph Lundgren keeps directing them, too. Mark and I interviewed Dolph Lundgren at one point for one of those things, and he directs these things like 2 or 3 a year. It's crazy. A movie that also fell off of the awards radar, which I didn't really understand, but apparently they didn't really push it. Michael Almereyda's Experimenter, which is out on Blu-ray from Magnolia. Magnolia doesn't do a whole lot pushing their stuff for awards. It's funny, too, because every year, you know what this is like. From certain distributors, the studios, from Weinstein Company, Fox Searchlight, they will send us these lovely screeners of the movies, and they have little custom packaging, and they'll usually come maybe with a little persuasion of some kind. It basically says, watch me, look at me, I'm a lovely movie. And then you will get like a slop bucket filled with DVD-Rs that are wrapped together in twine, and that's usually IFC or Magnolia, and they don't care. It's like, here, take a look, find something you like it, vote for it, whatever.
Maybe with a typed list of the movies that are in the film.
It's just horrible. So it's hard to sort of dig out the Magnolia and IFC stuff, but. Experimenter is a really interesting film, and it may be Michael Almereyda's best film. Michael Almereyda, of course, kind of a David Lynch acolyte,
I'm a big fan. Independent filmmaker. Love that vampire movie he did.
Nadia.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
one of the best. And frankly, I kind of dug that Hamlet that he did, a modern day Ethan Hawke Hamlet.
But they're all very under the radar.
Yeah.
They're very under the radar. And this one is still under the radar, but it feels more commercial. The story behind Experimenter, it's very contained, but it's a really interesting story. It stars Peter Sarsgaard as Stanley Milgram. And Stanley Milgram, for those who don't know, in 1961, Stanley Milgram was a Yale researcher who conducted this a Yale psychology professor and researcher who conducted this really fascinating experiment where he wanted to essentially, for very personal but also professional reasons, he wanted to understand how something like the Holocaust could happen. How could so many decent people merely follow and conform to something that they knew was horrible? So the experiment basically involved having people in adjacent rooms, one of them doing what they thought was delivering shocks, electrical shocks to the person in the other room. And they're supposed to do it until the character played by Sarsgaard, Milgram, until Milgram says stop. And, of course, you start to hear the person screaming, and then they don't scream. You think they've passed out. And the question is that person going to continue giving shocks that they know are harmful simply because this authority figure is telling you, don't stop, keep doing it? And it's fascinating where this goes. Winona Ryder comes back in a really wonderful supporting performance here, and it is a really, really intriguing series of experiments. And there's a story to it as well, a really fascinating story, and it gives you a lot of insight into Milgram. Jim Gaffigan is a wonderful wonderful colleague who's involved in the experiments. But what's particularly interesting, it goes into these weird psychological kind of fantasy sequences. When you see him walking down the hallway of their Yale building, followed by an elephant, you realize that there's something very different going on. And I think Almereyda's onto something really intriguing here, kind of telling us something psychological in a psychological way. It's not commercial enough to be awards worthy, but it's also not. It's not so artsy that it shouldn't have been. So I'm a little disappointed it isn't really getting more attention. But if you have a chance, check out Experimenter with Peter Sarsgaard and Winona Ryder. I'd say the best film Michael Almereyda has ever made.
Some of these little films I would have thought might have popped up during the Independent Spirit Awards.
Yeah,
they didn't, but they didn't pop up at all like that, which kind of blows me away because that's the place. That's the place for those movies.
Yeah.
The Independent Spirit Awards. I got a little film here called Stock Option. This was actually a television movie. Neat little movie, kind of like one of these, little African American films with some familiar folks in it. You have this guy, kind of like what was that movie Will Smith did? Pursuit of Happiness. Where, it's based on a true story.
Right.
Sort of a situation like that. You got this guy who's a stockbroker, and things go very badly for him because he does a bad deal. He ends up homeless on the street. He happens to be on the street in front of this very high-profile fashion agency, modeling agency, and he saves a very top-end fashion model from something terrible happening to her, and she takes a liking to him, and then she gives him he gives her some stock advice, and she takes it and uses it, and he sort of rebuilds it. Well, it's one of those kind of things. Actually, kind of cute, full of cute people. Little movie, television movie, Stock Option. Absolutely nothing on this DVD, not a Blu-ray, just a DVD. You know what I like most about this movie? 77 minutes long. 77 minutes. I got to tell you, I dig that. I like that. That's in there and out of there, baby.
Well, just 3 minutes longer, mercifully, is Guidance. Guidance got a little bit of attention last year. This is a Strand release. And here's the backstory on this movie. This was a Canadian independent film written and directed by Pat Mills. Pat Mills was a major child star in Canada decades ago and then just kind of vanished off the face of the earth and has since come back with a fury as a very funny writer, director, and star in this case. And
he's not that old. What is he, maybe 40, 35,
yeah, it's like 40,
40
something like that. And he basically plays himself. This is very autobiographical here. He plays a guy who used to be a child star, whose life is completely falling apart, and he finagles his way into becoming a high school guidance counselor, even though he's completely unqualified for it. It's a fascinating scam how he does it. He like fakes this resume and a whole thing, and he's the worst guidance counselor ever. He gives them horrible advice. The kids are like smoking weed. He's like, "Let me give you some better weed." It's just he's horrible. And you know the girls that don't know if they should have sex with the boyfriend. The things he tells them, it's just off the chart terrible. And he becomes sort of beloved, and it's quite a vanity project. Clearly, he wrote and directed this for himself to sort of resurrect his career late in life and to become a comic icon again. But that said, it really kind of works, and this was a bit of an underground hit at the Toronto Film Festival. And you know what? I have a feeling we're going to be seeing a lot more of the new, improved Pat Mills. So Pat Mills, former Canadian child star in Guidance, actually quite funny.
Yeah, years ago, another Canadian, Jay Fox made a movie called Life with Mikey. Mm-hmm. It was a big studio movie, and he was playing a guy who had been a child star when he was a little kid. Now he was an agent for child stars, and that was just, I don't know what, I always thought it was the coolest movie. It's kind of like at the back end of that sort of Michael J. Fox period. Gonna knock out some of these documentaries here?
Let's do it. Let's jump into the docs.
Because I really, really wanted to talk about this particular film.
Let's do it. It's
about
really important.
He named me Malala, about Malala Yousafzai, the young woman, girl, really, who was shot in the face, an attempted assassination in Afghanistan.
Was it Pakistan or Afghanistan? It was by the Taliban.
Yeah, it was by the Taliban. It was out it was one of those. It was one of those moments where her father, who is the extraordinary figure in this film, she's extraordinary. She's every bit as extraordinary as this movie makes her out to be, as she seems to be in the world of media when you've seen her around giving all those wonderful speeches. I believe she received a Nobel Prize, all of that. She's an extraordinary young lady, that's for sure. But her father is also an extraordinary character in this. Her father is the man who wanted to give his daughter an education. He wanted to make sure his daughter had an education every bit as good as his son's education. And ultimately, that was the reason why they came and attempted to kill her, because she was, was going to be an educated girl. But her father stood and still stands. He's fine. He's still alive. Stands beside her all the time. So he's the extraordinary figure that I think here. This man who, pushing back against all of society, pushing back against his family, who wanted something for his daughter, and then his daughter rose to the occasion. Yeah. So this is a wonderful documentary. You know what I like most about Malala? She's a C student. She's a C student. Yeah. She gets C's.
You know what? It is a wonderful story. She is so courageous, and that's the thing that is really stirring is how unflappable she is. Especially for her age and living where she is. It makes me feel like a wimp. I just think the things that I bitch and moan about on a daily basis, I got no business. I really don't. Yeah. I have no cause. And talking about courage, another courageous woman, a brave heart, the Lizzie Velasquez story. This is another one that is just so inspiring. Lizzie Velasquez, Elizabeth Velasquez, suffers from this very incredibly rare chromosomal disease that basically prevents her from gaining weight. So even as an infant, she was like skin and bones. But she's not dying. She just can't gain weight. She's at a certain level, and she looks just like skin wrapped around a skeleton. She looks like she's starving, like she's emaciated. But she's wonderful, and she's warm, and she became famous because of a TED Talk that really went crazy viral. And this is her story. And it's primarily not just about dealing with her disability, but it's about dealing with bullying, because she was bullied so mercilessly on the internet. They put up like YouTubes of her as the world's ugliest woman, and I mean, it was ruthless. And it makes you realize that our technology does not necessarily make us better. We may be more sophisticated with our technology, but it sometimes makes us worse. And she just turned around, and through the TED Talk and through all of her activism, she has just been this foremost activist to give people confidence and inspire them, and just say, stand up to this and don't let this make us worse people. And it is a very powerful story. She is really extraordinary. That's on DVD from Cinedigm. A Brave Heart, the Lizzie Velasquez story. Really, really highly recommended.
Another story of an outstandingly strong young woman.
Yep.
This is an interesting thing. Showrunners. A showrunner for folks who don't live in Los Angeles like Wade and I, it's the person who usually creates, but whether they create it or not, runs a television show. They're usually the chief writer of the television show, or at least the head writer of the television show. They are the primary producer of the television show, and very often they actually direct episodes of the television show. It's often been said that being a showrunner is the hardest job in Hollywood. Certainly being a showrunner is harder than being a director. In Hollywood, we very often give, the greatest props to major directors, major motion picture directors.
Very true.
But I got to tell you, any showrunner will tell you, or anybody who's ever worked on a television program, I've known many showrunners in my day, will tell you, running a television show is just about the hardest job you can possibly do.
Yeah, it's a grind.
In Hollywood. This is called The Showrunner. This is a document, The Art of Running a TV Show. You got J.J. Abrams and Hart Hansen and Damien Lindoff and Josh Whedon and many more folks who have created some of the most iconic television programs of the last 20 years or so, and they're all in this documentary, and they talk about what they do and how it's done. It's really, really an interesting behind-the-scenes kind of thing, which I find extremely intriguing. When you and I were growing up, Wade, there were these names that were, I grew up you grew up here, but I grew up in the Midwest, so there were certain names of showrunners, a such and such show, Irwin Allen, whoever it happened to be.
Sure.
And they became these sort of iconic right through, the Bochco years and the David E. Kelly years, and these people's names today it would be Donald P. Belisario. Belisario.
Yeah.
I think Stephen J. Cannell. I think he passed away not too long ago.
Oh, I guess he did.
I think Stephen did go. So that's who these people are. They're the people who have shaped the way television looks and sounds. Which is really a cultural. They've been shaping the culture of America. Since the invention of television, the showrunners, that's what they're called, showrunners. That's what this doc is about. Not a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff here, but it's interesting. It's a PBS, the showrunners, The Art of Running a TV Show.
So I've got an interesting trio here, kind of a little religious theme that goes through all of them. Two of them are PBS. One of them is a PBS DVDs, and the other one is a National Geographic Blu-ray. One is Secrets of Noah's Ark. This is a Nova documentary from PBS. Which tries to get into the sort of the historicity of the story of Noah's Ark, going all the way back to a 1948 discovery of this ancient inscription, presumably telling the story of a flood that is part of Sumerian mythology. And from there begins this detective work, this investigation into whether or not this is simply religious mythology or whether or not there's something more to it, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, great team of people that they put together at Nova, as they always do, to go out and try to actually reconstruct the whole concept of the Ark and a real Ark and build one, frankly. And it's really interesting. Gets into all kinds of interesting nautical things that I never even understood. And, I come from a Viking stock, so I'm supposed to know about boats and things. Speaking of that, also another one from PBS. This is an American Experience doc, The Pilgrims, by Rick Burns, the brother of Ken Burns. And nothing particularly new here, to be honest. I mean, this is stuff that we all learned in elementary school about the Pilgrims and Plymouth Rock and Thanksgiving, and it's the usual drill of all that stuff. But Rick Burns does it a little bit differently. He gives it kind of a more dramatic veneer, and an interesting kind of an interesting performance, we should say here, by Roger Rees, who plays William Bradford. That gives us a more vibrant, like you were there, fly on the wall feeling of what exactly motivated, 100 people, which is all they were. It was just 100 people. I mean, we forget the Pilgrims. This wasn't like a fleet of people. This was 100 people. Yeah, it was kind of which makes it a much more daunting endeavor than I think we might imagine. And then also there's this fascinating National Geographic. A film that narrated by Benedict Cumberbatch, who seems to be doing everything these days, that was released theatrically on IMAX screens in 3D. You can get it now as a 3D Blu-ray with a regular Blu-ray on the same disc. Jerusalem. And, this city is in the news and has been in the news every day for thousands of years and will likely continue to be for another 1,000 years. But this gives you not just a visual appreciation for the city and its history and its location and its heritage, but helps put it into context that helps us understand why it is such a hot spot and such a center of controversy and strife and so much, such political, such a hotbed of political and religious activity these days. This really puts it into context, and it is beautiful to look at, and it is informative, and it is wonderful, and it includes a great commentary by the director, Daniel Ferguson, as well as another commentary by the archaeologist Jody Magnus, and then a bunch of deleted scenes and additional featurettes and interviews and things of that sort. It is wonderful. It is really, really wonderful, and the photography is just beyond belief. So that is Jerusalem, originally filmed for IMAX, but it looks just as good, I would say, on your not even in 3D, just regular Blu-ray looks just as good.
Yeah, probably better than 3D, actually. I have this PBS documentary, Althea, which I saw when it was actually on PBS. And it's just
amazing lady,
an amazing lady, an amazing story. Individual, sort of Harlem tough gal growing up in Harlem, and coming to tennis the way she came to tennis, which was through a fairly circuitous route and all that kind of stuff. In addition to her personal story, which we get, and in tough times, all of her awards and accolades and all of that, and then tough times later, particularly through the 80s. I met her once in about 1982 or 3 or something like that. I'm a bit of a tennis freak. People who follow my Facebook posts will know that I have. But one of the things that this documentary revealed that I don't think most people know is that there's a very, very long history, particularly in these sort of culturated sort of black classes, sort of elite black classes, of people playing lawn tennis.
Interesting.
Black folks were playing tennis, lawn tennis, and whites and everything. In the early 1900s in New York, they had private tennis clubs. The black elite, doctors, lawyers, architects, and
that's
folks like that.
fascinating.
Even all down south. I remember my grandmother introduced me to tennis when I was, I think, 9 years old.
Isn't that interesting?
And it was just an amazing thing. So it was always sort of a funny thing. It was also these sort of ideas about things that, and we had Althea and we had Arthur Ashe, of course. But in fact, there was a long, long history of this. This is a great documentary, very good. Lots of historical footage. It's part of the American Masters series.
Beautiful.
Lovely film. Oh, dropped all kinds of stuff there.
Right.
But pick it up if you get the chance. Check it out if you get a chance.
And Unity, the Latin tribute to Michael Jackson. This thing, this was a concert that got very little attention. I didn't certainly know about it until this thing showed up. But it's really interesting seeing a lot of Latin artists perform Michael Jackson tunes. It really is. There's a whole different. You realize how versatile those songs are, right?
Yeah, and I got to tell you, we forget now. We think about Mikey over the course of the years and all this, that, and the other, and the other thing. I went to Michael Jackson's funeral. I actually attended.
I remember
his funeral. Which was, that's a whole story in and of itself. How I ended up attending his funeral. I went to cover his funeral as a journalist. But something wacky went down, and I ended up attending his funeral. and I got to tell you, Staples Center, 70,000 people. You could hear a pin drop in that place. That was that's it was just an absolutely fabulous thing. And Michael had a deep and penetrating effect on lots of people all over the world. So that doesn't surprise me at all over there. Yeah. Another PBS documentary, American Commandante. This was really interesting to me. There was this guy whose name was William Alexander Morgan. Right.
Yeah,
he was an American, and in the during the Bay of Pigs and the Batista regime in Havana and all of that, Che, the Castro brothers, he became involved with the rebels, and he became an American comandante. Who was engaged in the overthrow of that government in Cuba. He was renowned for many, many years, along with Che and all of these other people. Now, he was caught and executed in 1961 and sort of fell out of popular culture. People sort of forgot who he was. As the Castro brothers went on to do everything that they did, and the embargo went into place, and we've had all the history that we've had in Cuba over the last, I guess 50 years now, more than 50 years now. So people have just sort of forgotten about this guy. But he was a very interesting fellow, along the lines of L. Ron Hubbard in a certain sort of way.
That's weird.
It's sort of the way his mind worked. Anyway, it sort of fell out of the popular zeitgeist. But it's an interesting story. It's another one of the American Experience PBS series as opposed to the American Master series. American Commandante, the William Alexander Morgan story. Check it out. A lot of fun.
Cool. We're going to go move into some music now. I think we're done with the docs, right?
Yeah, I think
All right.
to the music stuff, yeah.
So we're going to move into the music. I'm going to get all this classical stuff and opera out of the way so that Mark doesn't ride me like a pony next week. We got a new version of the Nutcracker, Tchaikovsky's Nutcracker, which is just fantastic. This is beautiful. This is all by the opera and the ballet troops in Berlin. And really wonderfully staged, fantastic. I always enjoy the Nutcracker. It's not just a seasonal thing. It's just really, really cool. And I'm not a huge ballet fan, but I like it done really, really well. And that also includes Napoli. This is from Opus Arte. This is also on Blu-ray. This is the Royal Danish Ballet, and I couldn't tell you. I'm not enough of an aficionado to tell you who's great and who's not, but they look like they're pretty great, and this is really nicely done. Napoli was written in 1842, and it's not widely performed, but it is absolutely lovely. And then we also have Cinderella, the Prokofiev ballet, which is this is a double play Blu-ray DVD combo from Mariinsky with 2 I's, distributed by Naxos, like all the rest of these actually. And this is the Mariinsky Ballet and Orchestra, beautifully, beautifully done. Cinderella is easily on par with the Nutcracker, and Prokofiev is always just great. And then we have Puccini's Turandot, the amazing opera. My favorite of these is still the one that was staged by Zhang Yimou some years ago when he did his live version of Turandot.
In China?
In China. Yeah. It was amazing. It was just really amazing. But this is also very, very good. And worth checking out. This is with the Vienna Symphony Orchestra, conducted by Paolo Carignani and staged by Marco Arturo Marelli. This is from the Bregenzer Fest, part of the Unitel Classics line of C major. And then a couple other C major titles here. Verdi's Aida from the Teatro alla Scala. We got a lot of those regularly, directed by Peter Stein. And then the Bernard Haitink conducting Hector Berlioz' Symphonie Fantastique with the Royal Concertgebouw Orchestra in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam. This is from Art House Music. The Symphonie Fantastique is just one of the great pieces of all time. It is absolutely wonderful. If you're not a fan of Berlioz, I don't know you. I just don't like you. But it is absolutely wonderful. And I'm not widely familiar with Bernard Haitink, but this is from 1979, and the sound is staggeringly good, to be honest. And then last from C major is a Christmas oratorio of Bach's. This came in after our last show, so we weren't able to squeeze this in with our Christmas coverage. But this is a fascinating ballet staged to Bach music, to Bach's oratorio by John Neumeier with the Hamburg Ballet, and there are interviews on here with John Neumeier and Lloyd Riggins, and this is really an interesting, fascinating, kind of cool new holiday impression of the Bach put to dance. So you might want to check that out for next year and add that to one of your cool little holiday party rotations. Johann Sebastian Bach's Weihnachts. Whatever, Soratorium. Anyways, the Christmas Oratorio. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. Along with a ballet by John Neumeier. And then lastly, we have another 3 from Art House Music. One is Strauss's Die Fledermaus, which is one of the great all-time light operas, with Pavarotti and Joan Sutherland, Marilyn Horne. Great voices, all performed for the Royal Opera House. Beautifully, beautifully done. Pavarotti, such an amazing figure. I met him, actually.
Oh, really?
When I worked for Air France as a passenger service agent, he actually had to board the plane on the tarmac. He was that big.
Yeah.
And he was also that famous. He's not going to go through the jetway and do like everybody else. So he got special service, goes out to the tarmac, you put the little stairs up, and he goes in the emergency entrance in the back, and he's already sitting down in his first-class seat by the time everybody else boards the plane. Huge.
What? Pavarotti had that coming.
Huge man, just enormous man. And then we also have The Passenger, which is with the Vienna Symphony, conducted by Theodor Kurentzis. I'm totally out on all of these these new conductors. But anyway, this is a two-act opera from the 1960s. Kind of a new opera, not the greatest thing in the world, but it was kind of interesting to watch in pieces. And this is my favorite one of the week, a Tony Palmer film. Henryk Goretzky, The Symphony of Sorrowful Songs with the London Symphony.
I actually have it on DVD. It's
phenomenal.
It destroys me. It just destroys me.
It's just phenomenal. I mean, Tony Palmer, for those who don't know, has done a lot of feature films about great composers. Most significantly, Wagner, starring Richard Burton, which is a pretty heavy movie, but. This is the symphony that Goretzky wrote in 1976, and Goretzky's just such an amazing impressionistic composer. If you don't know, this is just such a devastating piece of music, and it also includes the Third Symphony, which is equally devastating. But this gives you not just the music, but it really gives you an extraordinary insight into who Goretzky was and why he wrote it and what the political situation was, and how this all kind of ties into the Holocaust. It is just the breadth of the importance of this music historically and culturally and socially is just, it's magnificent. So that is Henryk Goretzky, Gorecki, for those who don't know how to spell Polish names. The Symphony of Sorrowful Songs, filmed by Tony Palmer with the London Symphony. It is just wonderful. On Blu-ray.
Yeah, that's all classic stuff. I'm going to knock off something a little bit more contemporary. It's rock and roll and some stuff like that on DVD. Documented. Richie Blackmore. Richie Blackmore is a very famous guitarist, particularly for folks who are nuts about contemporary Joe Satriani and guys like that. Certainly Eddie Van Halen would be a protege of Richie Blackmore. Deep Purple, some of the heavy rock guys of the '60s, and but his work crosses all kinds of genres of stuff. This is a neat documentary. He's featured in it heavily, as well as many of the people that he influenced over the years. Richie Blackmore. I particularly like Richie Blackmore because he plays the Fender Stratocaster, and I do too. So way to go, Richie. Another guitarist, Eric Clapton, a slow hand. Alive at the Royal Albert Hall in 1970. That's what this is. This is just a fantastic 2 CD set with Blu-rays. 2 CDs and Blu-ray.
Speaking of Clapton, Robert Stigwood, another person who just passed away.
Yeah, he just passed away too. Yeah. And the thing about these guys, they were old.
I know.
80, 90.
A friend of mine on Facebook posted something recently relative to not to Stigwood, but to the passing of Schneider from One Day at a Time.
Oh yeah, Pat Harrington.
Pat Harrington, who was 86 or something, and he said. All these guys that you think are in their 40s, they're in their 80s.
Which of course, means
don't say it. Don't say it.
Yeah, we should stop. Another brilliant Jaco Pastorius, the wonderful bass player. Sort of from that Frank Zappa period there. Jaco is just an astounding guy who did things with the bass that most guys can't do with the guitar. Mm-hmm. Melodies and harmonies and harmonics and all sorts of things that are just completely breathtaking. This is a 2 DVD set. Again, a great doc. He's in the film, as well as wonderful bass players, including Flea and guitar players like Carlos Santana and a few others, talking about Jaco and the great work that he's been doing over the years. It's really fantastic. Joni Mitchell shows up in this too, so fantastic DVD there. The Great Sun Ra.
I have been waiting for this to come on Blu-ray for so long. This thing has been like this really... I mean, it's a cult film, but it's been on DVD forever, and everybody's like, when is it coming out on Blu-ray? When's it coming out on Blu-ray? It's such a fascinating movie.
Sun Ra was a true believer in his shtick,
That's one way of putting it.
The stuff to do with, Egypt and aliens and all kinds of stuff. But what he also was a fantastic piano player and composer and musician. So whatever you think of the shtick, what I like about it is that it influenced so many stuff. So like by the time you get to the middle 70s and guys like George Clinton are stepping out of the Mothership, the Mothership Connection, Parliament Funkadelic, all of that stuff. I mean, Jimi Hendrix too, for that matter. All of these guys influenced by Sun Ra. What musically, obviously, but also his sort of presentation and ideas about things. So really, really, really interesting stuff. So Sun Ra, A Joyful Noise is the film. And this is a classic film, by the way. Bonus features include an extended audio version of the performances in the film, so it's not quite as truncated as the performances were when the film was first edited and released. I also have a film by Roger Waters and Sean Evans. Roger Waters' The Wall. So this is a sort of retrospective film. From the co-founder and I guess you'd call him the principal songwriter.
The brains of Pink Floyd. Yeah,
that guy and The Wall and everything sort of went on behind that. So this sort of goes behind the scenes of the creation of the record and the concert and the stage productions and all that stuff. This is a Blu-ray. You got a bonus feature here, which includes some beautiful time lapses that have to do with the setting up of the stage performances, so you can see how those stages sort of all got set up. Really, really neat stuff. DVD, HD with ultraviolet watch anywhere. Roger Waters, The Wall. Pretty neat. Gil Scott-Heron, who I think we lost, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah, about that.
Lost
Something
Gil
like
Scott. Revolution. These are all Robert Muggy films, by the way. The Sun Ra film, that
incredibly prolific filmmaker.
Yeah, a lot of which has to do with editing. So what he really is, in my opinion, is one of the best editors in the world.
Yeah,
sort of the way he puts these. So anyway, this is Gil Scott-Heron in Black and Wax. Really, really just a beautiful movie about an extraordinary poet. And I always really did think of Gil Scott-Heron as more of a poet than anything else. A poet-philosopher.
Sure.
A musician, a performer, yes. But he was a poet-philosopher. And he was wrong, though, about the revolution. It will definitely be televised. Frank Sinatra, All or Nothing. Look, Frank Sinatra, looking like Frank Sinatra on this beautiful DVD. Absolutely fantastic. A lot of great footage from this 1971 concert. Although the film covers 60 years of his career. What can I say? What are we celebrating? His 100th birthday?
Something like that.
Something just went by.
It would have been 100. Yeah,
something like
100.
that.
Because Orson Welles were born about the same time, and it's about the Orson Welles centennial too.
So that falls there. And then for pop fans, Katy Perry, her world tour album Live. Not the biggest Katy Perry fan in the world. Kind of appreciate all that girl power. But mostly
she's bubblegum. That's just what she is.
And look, you know me. I'm a Spice Girls. When that Spice Girls movie came out,
you and I were the only two that were waiting in line.
That and Josie and the Pussycats. Baby.
Oh, I love that movie.
I still have that soundtrack.
It's a fantastic movie.
But I think that does it for all our music.
Well, a couple quick music wrap-outs here. Just two final ones. One is the Rolling Stones from the Vault, 1982, Round Hay Park. Live in Leeds, 1982. This is part of their Europe 1982 European tour, which was Start Me Up and that whole period. I remember very well when they were in Los Angeles around that time. This is 2 CDs and a DVD, and it's just great. It's classic Rolling Stones from sort of their I guess I don't want to call it their resurrection, but they did have a second life in the 1980s that was, they sort of went away a little bit in the 70s. They weren't quite in groove in the 70s. That was, disco kind of marginalized them a little bit. But in the 80s, they came back full force, and they were hotter than ever, and a lot of great stuff on here. The CDs are great, all great tunes, great live performances. And the DVD is great as well. Jumpin' Jack Flash is just, it is one for the ages. And then the other one is a Blu-ray of Lady Antebellum, their Wheels Up tour. I am not necessarily a huge country fan, but I do like Lady Antebellum. There's something kind of sweet and winsome about their stuff, and they have a lovely tone. And this is quite nice. This was part of their North American 2015 tour. As well as performances in Europe and Australia, and this is from mostly stuff from the album 747, and it's a lot of great stuff. So it's really, really nice. If you're a fan of country or not, I would say give it a look. It's good tunes. Tim, let me go through these Paramount titles real quickly. And some of these are Paramount titles that are being released now through Warner Brothers, because Warner Brothers has the license to release Paramount catalog titles. which is why you get Selma, which is a Paramount film, basically being released by Warner Brothers now, in a slightly more stripped-down version. Same extras, it's just not the splashy packaging or slipcover or any of that stuff. But so we do have a new Blu-ray release of Selma in just a regular, straight, plain old stripped-down Blu-ray keep case. Still a great film and great extras. That is out again. New edition of Footloose. There's nothing new on any of these. These are just new releases, new packaging, new pricing. Which, of course, this is worth checking out just for like Kevin Bacon's screen test, which is absolutely fantastic. New release of Escape from Alcatraz. Bare bones, nothing else on here. Just Clint breaking his way out of the pen, getting out of the pokey. The bootleg cut of Almost Famous, the director's edition. This is out now in a new stripped-down version. Same old great extras, though, including the Cameron Crowe intro and commentary, along with the B-sides, behind-the-scenes footage, and all the other music video and featurette material. New bare bones versions of Naked Gun, 2.5 and 33 and a third, the final insult. So The Smell of Fear and the final insult. All of these have slightly less luster now. I think just because this brand of comedy is kind of no longer really hip, Leslie Nielsen, nobody really knows who he is anymore, and O.J. Simpson showing up in these doesn't really. Not quite as funny as it used to be.
Well, those jokes, I mean,
they're kind of...
There they are.
Yeah.
Don't call me Shirley.
Yeah.
And all that.
And then also new releases of Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
I love that movie still.
Mean Girls with Lindsay Lohan and Tina Fey. I still love that film.
Yeah. Last time Lindsay Lohan was good.
And the timeless Trading Places, back when Eddie Murphy looked exactly the same and Dan Aykroyd didn't.
And I'm not going to lie.
Anyway,
all sorts of things I wanted to say about that, but I'm not going to.
Yeah, John Landis, one of his. It was kind of like his last big hit, wasn't it?
Big hit. Yeah. A few things after that. Jamie Lee Curtis in that movie, looking good.
Yeah,
particularly from the waist up. I tried not to say it. I held out for like 15 seconds.
It's all right.
Then I just caved in and went for the boob joke. Yeah. I don't know what's wrong with me. Joe Dirt 2. The only thing more ridiculous than my stupid Jamie Lee Curtis boob. Jamie Lee's a friend of mine, by the way, so that's okay. Nobody write in. Me and Jamie's good buddies. Joe Dirt 2. The only thing that's more ridiculous than Joe Dirt 2 was Joe Dirt.
Yeah.
And I back when Joe Dirt came out, I remember doing the junket for that. Talked to David Spade. Everybody was there. And, we had a nice little talk about this mediocre comedy that wasn't particularly funny, which David Spade knew.
Yeah.
And plainly knew as I was talking to him. Because I'd be damned if David Spade didn't want to talk about everything on the planet except Joe Dirt. Mm-hmm. We never did mention that movie in our interview. So, but nevertheless, here we are looking at Joe Dirt 2 because everybody needs to get paid. Also, and it's sort of interesting Blu-ray set. There's a big ding there. I have no idea.
No.
I think it might have been my phone or something like that. I should turn them off before we come in the studio. Zoolander. The thing about it's called Zoolander.
This is the
blue steel book or the steel blue book, whatever.
We've had fans kind of looking forward to this on the Facebook page, and let's be honest, the only reason this is out is to prime everybody to remember this movie because the new one is coming out.
I got to tell you, too much time between those two.
It feels like it, doesn't it?
Too much time between those two. This was funny. Relatively speaking, and only slightly so when it came out the first time. This is packed full of all sorts of special features. So you got your commentary track with Ben Stiller and the writers of the original film. You got a behind-the-scenes featurette. You got actually like 3 behind-the-scenes featurettes, some sort of a wacky thing that has to do with Zoolander's closet. And just more outtakes and music videos and public service announcements and an episode of MTV's Cribs and I think I might be on this thing. I don't know. I think
it's just. I mean, it looks nice.
And there's some sort of a little something in this box too. I don't know what the hell that is in there, but I think it might be that headband that Ben Stiller is wearing on that box.
It is the hair headband.
It's the hair headband he's wearing on the box. That's what it is. So look, at least if you buy that, you're getting yourself all kinds of crap. Better on Blu-ray, and certainly this has been on Bluray before.
Dog Day Afternoon. It has. This is a cool new edition.
Interesting stuff.
Yeah.
I love this movie. What I love most about this movie is John Cazale, who we lost, years and years ago.
Yeah.
Just a few years after this film, if I'm not mistaken.
Every movie he ever appeared in was nominated for Best Picture.
And he is just outstanding. People forget what an amazing actor he was.
So good.
People also forget that John Cazale was Meryl Streep's old man.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were. He was
at the time at the time of the Deer Hunter.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's what the director's commentary here, extended interviews. It's Sidney Lumet. It's an extraordinary film. You can't go wrong.
All right, we got a bunch of great stuff from.
One more.
Jump into that.
Just because Frank Capra, you can't take it with you. All right, this is a 1938 film.
So good.
I so much prefer this film to the absolutely heinous other Capra film that everybody loves, that stupid Christmas movie that I hate.
I agree with you.
But this is far and away a better film.
It is.
Far and away a more. Anyway, you can't take it with you. Frank Capra, Gene Arthur, and Jimmy Stewart. This is a gorgeous looking box here.
Beautiful new Blu-ray book. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a book, and commentary by Capra Jr. And Arthur Catherine Kelson. It's a really, really lovely stuff. Check that one out if you get a chance.
So we got a great bunch of new Kino Lorber Classics releases, as well as a few other just regular Kino releases. Gonna go through this real quickly, just so you know exactly what's out there. Ken Russell made a movie about Valentino, starring Rudolf Nureyev. That is a bit of a head trip, but it's got a great cast, including three of my all-time favorite leading ladies, Leslie Caron, who I've been fortunate enough to meet, Michelle Phillips, and Carol Kane. Boy, isn't that an interesting trilogy? Interesting trio. Anyway, this was produced by Winkler and Chardoff in 1977, right after their success with Rocky. And, not a great film, not even Ken Russell's best film, but my goodness, what a fascinating movie. And Nureyev is so much better than you would have expected him to be.
Ken Russell is so crazy. And
so
Mark has a fantastic Ken Russell story. I'm not going to tell it, but remind Mark to tell his Ken Russell story when he gets back.
We were supposed to interview Ken Russell at one point, and he stood us up, and it was just it was insane. But beautiful cinematography by Peter Suskitsky, whose name I almost always mispronounce and wind up swearing. Really great stuff. And Seymour Cassel shows up in this. We got stories about Seymour, too. So anyway, Valentino is out. And then also The Hurricane, not the one with Denzel Washington, directed by Norman Jewison. This is the John Ford film with Dorothy Lamour and Mary Astor and John Carradine and a lot of other great people. This is a really, really, really good movie. Very kind of uncharacteristic 1937 John Ford film. And our good friend and former LAFCA colleague Joe McBride does the audio commentary here. He also wrote a biography of Ford that is very well regarded. And this is quite an outstanding film. It really is. Just some of the best performances that Ford ever got out of anybody. And Dorothy Lamour is very uncharacteristic here. So that is a wonderful addition. George Montgomery and Robber's Roost, co-starring Richard Boone and Bruce Bennett. Kind of a routine Western from 1955. Not that spectacular, but if you like George Montgomery, and if you even know who he is, that's probably a little bit meaningful. Love at Large is an Alan Rudolph misfire, noteworthy only because it has really nice performances by Tom Berenger, Elizabeth Perkins, and Ann Archer, but it is otherwise one of the 1990 era films.
Yeah, I actually talked to him for that film when it came out.
It sort of buried him, actually. This was one of the movies that sort of put him under. Vicious Circle was the one that really put him under. But this one really kind of
Demi Moore saved him a little. She made a movie called Mortal Thoughts. It started out with a different director, and that director sort of jacked it up, and she wouldn't get Alan Rudolph to finish that movie for her. But that one kind of took him out. This one really took him out. It's not good, but from 1990, if you're a completist, it'll probably be meaningful. John Frankenheimer made a movie called The Fourth War with Roy Scheider and Jürgen Prochnow, which isn't bad. Frankenheimer made a lot of junk kind of later in his career, and this is also a 1990 kind of quasi-misfire. It deals with what do you call them? Soldiers of Fortune, basically, and takes place on the in the Russian tundra, and an American colonel played by Roy Scheider and a Russian colonel played by Jürgen Prochnow, because it's no sorcerer.
Yeah, it's not, but it's standard kind of 90s spy action stuff. It's okay. The Siege of Firebase Gloria is a movie with Wings Hauser and R. Lee Ermey that is kind of almost so campy you can't believe it. This is from 1989, directed by Brian Trenchard Smith, who does intentional camp. And I'm not sure a lot of people necessarily realize that this. I think this film was ridiculed a bit at the time because it was it came on the heels of Full Metal Jacket, and Ermey was sort of trying to trade on his character in that film and basically play it over and over and over. And he basically plays the same thing here in Wings Hauser. Was like a straight-to-video king of the 1980s. But you know what? This is actually once you get into the vein of what Brian Trenchard Smith does, which is kind of broad. It's not a comedy, but it has intentional camp in it. Then you can sort of enjoy it for the sort of off-base war film that it is, set during the Tet Offensive of all things. Joel McCrea in Fort Massacre, totally just standard cowboys and Indians western of the 1950s with people who made millions of these, including Forrest Tucker. And if you want to know why Forrest Tucker wound up in F Troop, it's because he made a lot of movies like that. Another Alan Rudolph film, Welcome to L.A., which was produced by Robert Altman. This is a much better Alan Rudolph film.
Indeed.
This is Alan Rudolph doing what he does best, which is directing actors in very, very intense situations and really kind of putting a spotlight on the city of Los Angeles in both a flattering and unflattering way. And great Harvey Keitel performance in here. Keith Carradine is great. Geraldine Chaplin, Sally Kellerman, all people that kind of come over from the stock of Robert Altman players. Written and directed by Alan Rudolph in 1976 when he was in his prime. And then lastly, Nathaniel Hawthorne's Twice Told Tales with Vincent Price. This was Vincent Price in 1963 when he was basically doing kind of cheesy literary adaptations, most of them Poe, but in this case Hawthorne, that were all sort of being turned into neo-horror films. In any case, it's a little bit cheesy. It's kind of silly. Directed by Sidney Salkow, who is certainly no Roger Corman. But you know what? Vincent Price, even when he's in something that's a little bit cheesy, he's always a lot of fun. And there's a great commentary on here from Richard Harlan Smith and Perry Martin, who are both film historians who contextualize it beautifully. So there you go. That is Twice Told Tales with Vincent Price. Always priceless.
I can watch those Vincent Price. It doesn't make me any difference. I don't care. They're fine with me no matter what. I'm going to leave that stack to you because I know a little bit about these right here, and including this particularly good film, Michael Curtiz film. The other good Michael Curtiz film with Humphrey Bogart, Passage to Marseille. With that same cast, Claude Rains and Sidney Greenstreet and everybody. This is a really Peter Lorre. This is a really, really good film, 1944 film. But it's an action film, unlike Casablanca. This film moves very, very quickly and has lots of sort of captivating action sequences in it. And I think neat special features on here. You have A Night at the Movies. You have a Oscar-nominated musical short, a cartoon. You pick up this Blu-ray and it'll be like you're going to the movies in 1944. Like actually going to the movies in 1944. I'm glad you let me do this one too. Bobby Joe and the Outlaw. Linda Carter and Jesse Vent.
Linda Carter.
Dude, I can remember when this movie came on television in 1970, whatever the hell it was, when it actually came on television. Mark Lester film. This is a Mark Lester film.
Yeah.
And I absolutely adored this film and first fell in love. This is before she played Wonder Woman. Linda Carter is Wonder Woman. For folks who can't remember who she is,
and she sings now. Like she appears in clubs doing like torch song stuff. It's fantastic.
I can see that. It's funny. The lead into this box says the stunning physical charm of Linda Carter, TV's Wonder Woman, is first fully exposed to filmgoers. In this rousing adventure. It's because she does a topless scene in the show. And I got to tell you, that imprinted me when I was a young man, and it's still there, and I adore her to this day. So this is pretty neat, too, by the way. It has special features, including an audio commentary with the director, Mark Lester, and a few other people, and some on-camera interviews. And I got Queen of Blood over here, which is a pretty neat old sort of blood and guts movie with John Saxon, Dennis Hopper, and the great Basil Rathbone, It's it's one of those sort of alien invasion things. It's like aliens yet like vampires all together in the same movie, which is a little bit wacky. But I tell you what, I can watch this. This is a Roger Corman film. I can watch this stuff all day long. I can just put it on and look at it. It doesn't bother me at all. So that's a Roger Corman film. From Kino Lorber. Special features include an interview with Roger Corman and historian Robert Sicott.
Fantastic. And we got just four more we're going to cover. Two from the Warner Archive collection. One is a Blu-ray, one is a DVD. The first one is the DVD, The Wind in the Willows, which has been done 1 trillion times, most famously perhaps by the Henson people. Yeah. But you know what? It's a great story, and a lot of people may forget that Rankin Bass, back in 1983, after they had done all of those 1960s and 70s stop-motion holiday specials, and including their version of The Hobbit, they did an animated version of The Wind in the Willows, which is not bad, actually. Screenplay by Romeo Muller, who wrote all their stuff, and music by Murray Laws, who also wrote all their stuff. Judy Collins' theme song. It's actually not bad. It's kind of a cool little. It's a cool little animated version that holds up well with all the other versions. And then Deep in My Heart, which is a Blu-ray, one of the rare Warner Archive Blu-rays, is just outstanding. This is directed by Stanley Donen with a cast that is absolutely to die for.
Including Gene Kelly's brother.
This is just beyond belief. Basically, what this is a show. It's a Broadway show of shows.
With every big hit from every Broadway.
22 songs, 11 different Broadway shows. All of them just kind of mashed together in this fantastic cornucopia of stuff. And it is great. I mean, you have Walter Pidgeon and Jane Powell and Sid Charisse and Howard Keel and Fred Kelly. And
Fred Kelly.
Gene Kelly's brother.
Kelly's brother.
Rosemary Clooney. It's just amazing. It's just absolutely amazing. Deep in My Heart. It is for musical fans. It is just beyond wonderfulness. And then lastly, the last two are silent film collections from Kino Classics. One is the Moana with Sound, which is a Robert Flaherty film that he made with his wife, Frances Hubbard Flaherty, in 1922, based on their success with Nanook of the North. Except here, instead of going up into Inuit territory, they go to the South Seas, to the island of Savaii, and to basically do the same thing to the Samoans that they did to the Inuit, which is not as legendary, but it is actually quite fascinating because, as you can tell from the title, it includes sound. It includes an audio track, which was added in 1975, courtesy of the Flaherty's daughter, who went back there and redid the film and then re-released it in 1980. So it is sort of a fascinating family effort over the course of many, many generations. Moana with Sound. And then lastly is Louis Feuillad's Fantomas, which is the original collection of serials, 5 films on 2 discs. And Louis Feuillade, of course, is the French silent filmmaker who most famously invented the whole idea of serial filmmaking and serial storytelling, and we wouldn't have had those Saturday morning serials if not for Louis Feuillade. So Fantomas is his interpretation of a very famous series of French pulp novellas, and it's really great stuff. This year is actually the 100th anniversary of the film's release, and they did a great new 4K restoration courtesy of Gaumont and the Cinémathèque Française. You got a couple of audio commentaries by David Kalat, who used to be a film distributor himself, a DVD distributor. We used to work with him, and he's an amazing source of information. And then a bunch of other shorts. So this is a wonderful look back in time at the 1913 to 1914, 15. A series of really fascinating kind of pulpy silent serials. Fantomas by Louis Feuillade. And with that, Tim,
history.
Thank you for being here these 2 weeks, and we will chat soon.
Absolutely, I'll be back again since Mark has to go and make more money.
Okay. Bye-bye.